The cabin was colder than my wife's goodbye kiss, which, considering she'd vanished sometime between midnight and dawn, leaving nothing but tire tracks in the snow and my wedding ring on the nightstand, was saying something. I'm Jake Morrison, and 6 weeks ago I thought I knew what betrayal looked like. Turns out, I didn't know jack shit. The note was folded under my coffee mug, written in Saddie's precise lawyer handwriting. Don't wait up. It's over. File the papers yourself. Real Shakespeare, my wife. 18 years of marriage reduced to a post-it note level of communication. My phone was dead. The landline had been cut, literally cut, with wire cutters because Saddie never did anything halfway. The keys to both vehicles were gone, along with my wallet, our emergency cash stash, and apparently my entire fucking life. The storm outside was biblical. 3 feet of fresh powder with more coming down like God's dandruff. The nearest neighbor was 5 miles through terrain that would challenge a mountain goat. But staying put wasn't an option. Not when every instinct I'd developed in 20 years of construction work was screaming that something was very, very wrong. I wrapped myself in every piece of clothing I could find and started walking. 4 hours later, I stumbled into the Pine Ridge police station, looking like a frozen scarecrow. Detective Ray Kowalski, a guy I'd known since high school, barely looked up from his coffee. Let me guess, he said. Saddie left you stranded at the cabin. That stopped me cold. How did you... Missing persons report was filed and withdrawn yesterday. She called it off herself, said it was a marital disagreement, and she was safe. Ray's eyes never left his paperwork. Case closed, Jake. Go home and work it out with your wife. She took everything. Bank cards, cash, car keys. Sounds like a civil matter. Get a lawyer. The dismissal in his voice was like a slap. This wasn't the Ray who'd helped me build my first deck, who'd been best man at my wedding. This was a cop following orders. I walked the 12 miles home through downtown Pine Ridge, past the ski lodges where rich tourists pretended to rough it, past the bars where locals like me drank away the reality that we'd never afford what the tourists took for granted. Every step was a hammer blow to my pride. My house, our house, felt like a crime scene. The joint checking account showed a balance of $37. The savings account that had held our retirement fund was empty. Wire transfers, all authorized with my electronic signature, had moved everything to accounts I'd never heard of. Emma, our 20-year-old daughter, was waiting in the kitchen. She handed me an envelope without meeting my eyes. What's this? Just read it, Dad. The paper was expensive, cream-colored, embossed. A wedding invitation. Saddie Elizabeth Morrison and David Charles Brennan request the pleasure of your company. 6 weeks, I said, staring at the date. She's marrying him in 6 weeks. David's a good man, Emma said quietly. He makes Mom happy. David? You mean her law partner? The guy who's been working late with your mother for the past year? Emma's face went red. It's not like that. They fell in love. These things happen. These things? I laughed, and it came out like broken glass. Your mother cleaned out our accounts, abandoned me in a snowstorm, and filed for separation using fake abuse reports. But sure, honey, these things just happen. The abuse isn't fake. Emma's voice was steady, practiced. I've seen the therapy reports. Dr. Martinez documented everything. Dr. Martinez. Saddie's former colleague from the district attorney's office, now a private therapist who specialized in domestic intervention. The same Dr. Martinez who'd been prescribing me sleep aids that left gaps in my memory, who'd been documenting incidents I couldn't remember having. Emma, I never laid a hand on your mother. That's what abusers always say. She left me standing in my kitchen, holding an invitation to my wife's wedding, to another man, surrounded by the wreckage of a life I'd thought was solid. That's when I found the first phone. It was taped under the bathroom sink, a cheap burner that Saddie had hidden but forgotten to take. The text history made my blood turn to ice water. Saddie to David. Phase 1 complete. He's isolated and the accounts are clean. David to Saddie. Martinez confirms the medical documentation is solid. Judge Hartwell will fast-track everything. Saddie to someone listed as M. The recording devices worked perfectly. We have 18 months of audio. 18 months. They'd been planning this for 18 months. I scrolled through message after message, watching my marriage get dissected like a legal case. Every argument we'd had, every moment of frustration or anger, had been recorded, edited, and weaponized. The sleep medication had been designed to make me groggy and confused during their staged confrontations. The therapy sessions were building a case file, and Judge Hartwell, Saddie's old mentor from law school, was already signed on to rubber stamp whatever they needed. My hands were shaking as I read the final exchange, dated just 3 days ago. Saddie to David. Jake will try to fight this. We need the restraining order ready. David to Saddie. Already prepared. Hartwell will sign it the moment we file. One word from you and Jake becomes a legal ghost. I set the phone down carefully, like it might explode. For 18 years, I'd built houses, good, solid houses that would stand for generations. I understood foundations, load-bearing walls, the physics of construction. You start with a plan, you use quality materials, and you don't cut corners. Saddie had just taught me that marriages could be demolished the same way they were built, methodically, with the right tools, and a complete understanding of structural weaknesses. Time to return the favor. The next morning, I drove to Saddie's law office in my backup truck, a beat-up Ford she'd apparently forgotten about. The building was all glass and steel, the kind of place where lawyers charged $500 an hour to destroy people's lives with a smile. David Brennan was exactly what I'd expected. 6'2", silver at the temples, wearing a suit that cost more than most people's cars. He was walking to his BMW when I intercepted him. Jake. He had the decency to look uncomfortable. I was hoping we could talk. About what? Your wedding registry? I'm thinking something in crystal since you're so good at breaking things. Look, I know this is difficult. Difficult? I stepped closer. David took a step back. You and my wife spent 18 months planning to destroy my life, and you think it's difficult. Saddie was unhappy. She needed someone who understood her professional ambitions. Right. And the fake abuse reports? The drugging? The financial theft? That was all about professional ambitions? David's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. I pulled out the burner phone and read from the screen. David to Saddie. Martinez confirms the medical documentation is solid. Ring any bells, counselor? For a moment, David looked like he might bolt. Then his lawyer training kicked in. That's illegally obtained evidence, inadmissible in any court. Good thing I'm not planning to take you to court. I grabbed the hood of his BMW and slammed it down hard enough to set off the car alarm. David jumped back like I'd pulled a gun. Here's what's going to happen, I said, raising my voice over the alarm. You're going to call off this wedding. You're going to return every penny you helped steal from my accounts. And you're going to tell Saddie that if she wants a divorce, she can get it honestly. You're threatening me. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. But first, let me ask you something. Does your law firm know you've been helping clients commit bank fraud? Because those wire transfers you authorized? They're going to be real interesting to the State Bar Association. David's hand froze halfway to his phone. You can't prove anything. Maybe not. But I can sure as hell try. And while I'm at it, I might just send copies of these texts to every client your firm represents. Amazing how quickly people lose faith in lawyers who steal from their own spouses. I walked away, leaving David standing next to his dented BMW with its alarm still wailing. It wasn't much, but it was a start. The real revelation came that afternoon, when I visited my brother Tommy at his auto shop. Tommy was 2 years younger than me, built like a linebacker, and the only family I had left after our parents died. Jesus, Jake, you look like hell. Feel worse. Tommy, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Shoot. Saddie's been saying I have anger issues, that I've been violent with her. You've never seen anything like that, right? Tommy's face went carefully neutral. Jake, right? Look, man, maybe you should talk to someone, a professional. The words hit me like a physical blow. You believe her. I've seen you lose your temper. Remember last Christmas when you threw that glass? I did remember. Saddie had announced in front of everyone that she was concerned about my drinking. I'd been nursing my second beer of the evening. I'd thrown my glass into the fireplace and stormed out. That was one time, Tommy. One glass into a fireplace after she humiliated me in front of the family. But it's not just one time, is it? Saddie's told me about other incidents. The hole you punched in the wall. The time you grabbed her wrist. What hole? What wrist? Tommy, I've never… She showed me pictures, Jake. Bruises. The world tilted. When? When did she show you pictures? Last month. She was worried about you. Said you'd been acting strange since you started those sleep medications. Last month. A month before she disappeared. Saddie had been building her case not just with doctors and judges, but with my own brother. Did she ask you to do anything? Sign anything? Tommy looked away. She asked me to write a statement about your temper, said it might help you get the treatment you need. You wrote a statement saying I was abusive. I wrote a statement saying you've been struggling, that you need help. And you gave it to her lawyer, Jake, to David Brennan, the man she's marrying in 5 weeks. Tommy's silence was answer enough. I left the shop without another word. My own brother, the guy who'd helped me build my first business, who'd stood by me through our parents' deaths, who'd been my best man, had been turned against me. That evening, I sat in my empty house and made a list. Saddie had taken my money, my reputation, my daughter, and my brother. She'd drugged me, recorded me, and built a legal case that would destroy me if I tried to fight back. She'd been thorough, professional, ruthless. She'd also made one crucial mistake. She'd underestimated what a man with nothing left to lose might be willing to do. I opened my laptop and started researching. David Brennan's law firm, Judge Hartwell's recent cases, Dr. Martinez's patient confidentiality agreements, Saddie's new address, a luxury condo downtown that she was apparently sharing with her fiancé. If Saddie wanted to play legal games, I'd show her what happened when you brought law books to a construction fight. The phone rang at midnight. Unknown number. Hello, Jake? The voice was familiar, but I couldn't place it. Who is this? Someone who knows what Saddie did to you. Someone who can help. Help how? Meet me tomorrow at Murphy's Bar, 9 p.m. Come alone and bring that burner phone you found. The line went dead. I stared at the phone, my mind racing. Someone else knew about the burner. Someone else knew what Saddie had done. For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Murphy's Bar was the kind of place where construction workers drank away their paychecks and nobody asked questions about black eyes or broken knuckles. I'd been coming here for 15 years, back when Saddie and I were still pretending our marriage was worth saving. The woman waiting in the corner booth was not what I'd expected. Michelle Torres had been Saddie's best friend since law school, maid of honor at our wedding, godmother to Emma. If I'd made a list of people who might help me, Michelle would have been dead last. Hello, Jake. Michelle? I slid into the booth across from her. This is unexpected. I imagine it is. She was drinking whiskey, straight, and her hands were steady. You brought the phone? I set the burner on the table between us. Why are you here, Michelle? Because Saddie fucked me over too. That got my attention. How? Michelle pulled out her own phone and scrolled through text messages. 3 months ago, I was up for partner at Brennan, Hayes & Associates, David's firm. I'd been working there for 5 years, billing more hours than anyone except David himself. She turned the phone toward me. The messages were between Saddie and David, dated 8 weeks ago. Saddie. Michelle's partnership vote is next week. She's the only one who knows about us. David. What do you want me to do? Saddie. Handle it. She's a liability. They tanked my partnership, Michelle said. Claimed I'd been padding my billable hours. Forced me to resign to avoid a bar association investigation. Jesus. The funny thing is, I wasn't even going to say anything about their affair. I figured it was none of my business. Michelle drained her whiskey. But Saddie couldn't take the risk. So why help me? Because I've been watching her destroy you for 18 months and I'm tired of pretending I don't see it. Michelle leaned forward. Also because I have something you need. She pulled out a tablet and opened a video file. The image was grainy, black and white, but clear enough. Saddie and David in what looked like a hotel room, along with Dr. Martinez and Judge Hartwell. Security camera from the Riverside Hotel, Michelle said. 3 weeks ago, they were celebrating the completion of your case file. The audio was crystal clear. To the icebreaker protocol, Judge Hartwell was saying, raising a champagne glass, the most elegant destruction of a marriage I've ever witnessed. Jake never saw it coming. Saddie laughed. The sleep medication kept him just confused enough to be believable. And the staged incidents? Dr. Martinez asked. Perfect. 18 months of documentation. Even if he finds the burner phone, he can't prove the recordings were edited. David's voice. What about his business, the construction company? Already handled, Saddie said. IRS audit starts next week. By the time we're married, Jake will be bankrupt and facing federal charges for tax evasion. The video ended. I sat in stunned silence. Tax evasion? I finally managed. Falsified records. They've been setting you up for months. Michelle closed the tablet. The audit notice is probably waiting in your mailbox right now. She was right. When I got home, the IRS letter was there, along with a notice that my business accounts had been frozen pending investigation. I called Michelle. How did you get that video? I still have friends at the hotel. The question is, what are you going to do with it? I'm going to destroy them. All of them? Every single one. The next morning, I started my counterattack. First, I drove to Tommy's shop. He was under the hood of a pickup truck when I walked in. Jake, look, about yesterday. Forget it. I handed him a manila envelope. I need you to watch something. The video played on his office computer. I watched Tommy's face go from confusion to horror to rage. That bitch, he said when it was over. That lying, manipulative bitch. She played us both, Tommy. The question is, are you going to help me get even? What do you need? Your statement, the one you wrote for David. I need you to recant it, publicly. Done. What else? I'm going to need some muscle, and maybe some friends who aren't afraid of getting their hands dirty. Tommy grinned. I know just the guys. By noon, I had a crew. Tommy's mechanic buddies, a couple of guys from the electricians union, and Mike Santos, an ex-MMA fighter who ran a gym downtown and had his own reasons for hating lawyers. So, what's the plan? Mike asked. Simple. Saddie wants to play dirty? We're going to show her what dirty really looks like. I spread out copies of the bank records Michelle had helped me obtain. David's been skimming from client accounts to fund their little operation. Saddie's been using her position at the DA's office to access confidential records. Judge Hartwell's been taking bribes for favorable rulings. How do we prove it? Tommy asked. We don't have to prove it. We just have to make enough noise that other people start looking. I pulled out a list of phone numbers. Every client David's firm represents, every case Judge Hartwell has ruled on in the past year, every patient Dr. Martinez has treated. You're talking about destroying their careers, Mike said. They destroyed mine first. That afternoon, I made my first move. I walked into the Pine Ridge Gazette, our local newspaper, and handed editor Janet Walsh a copy of the hotel video. This is explosive stuff, Jake. If I run this, it's going to blow up the whole legal establishment in this town. That's the idea. I'll need corroboration, other sources. You'll have them. The story ran the next day. Local judge, lawyers accused of conspiracy. The headline was everything I'd hoped for. By evening, my phone was ringing off the hook. Clients of David's firm, demanding explanations. People who'd appeared before Judge Hartwell, questioning their verdicts. Patients of Dr. Martinez, wondering if their therapy had been compromised. Saddie called at midnight. "You son of a bitch." "Hello, sweetheart. How's the wedding planning going?" "You're going to regret this, Jake. I'll destroy you." "You already tried. My turn now." I hung up and poured myself a drink. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The war had begun. The next 3 weeks were a masterclass in systematic destruction. Michelle had provided me with 5 years' worth of inside information about David's firm, Saddie's cases, and Judge Hartwell's questionable rulings. I used every bit of it. First, I went after David's business. His law firm represented half the major contractors in the county, including the company building the new ski resort. I visited every job site, every foreman, every subcontractor, and shared copies of the hotel video. "This is the guy handling your contracts," I'd tell them. "The guy who thinks it's funny to drug people and steal their money. Still want him representing you?" By the end of the first week, Brennan, Hayes, and Associates had lost 6 major clients and 3 junior partners. Next, I targeted Saddie's reputation. She was supposed to be the ethical backbone of the district attorney's office, the prosecutor who never cut corners. I leaked her text messages to every defense attorney in the county, showing how she'd used confidential medical records to build a fake abuse case. "How many other cases has she fabricated?" I asked anyone who'd listen. "How many innocent people are sitting in jail because Saddie Morrison decided to play God?" The district attorney's office announced an internal investigation. Saddie was placed on administrative leave. Judge Hartwell was trickier, but Michelle had a solution. She'd kept copies of every questionable ruling he'd made over the past 5 years, along with records of the consulting fees he'd received from lawyers who appeared before him. "Judicial misconduct is a federal crime," Michelle explained. "Once the FBI starts looking, they'll find everything." I hand-delivered the evidence to the federal courthouse myself, but my favorite target was Dr. Martinez. I'd done my research on him. He wasn't just Saddie's former colleague. He was a man with secrets. His therapy practice specialized in domestic intervention, but his methods were questionable at best. The sleep medications he'd prescribed weren't standard treatment. The recording devices he'd helped install were illegal without consent. More importantly, he'd been doing this to other people. I found them through public records. 3 other men who'd been patients of Dr. Martinez, all of whom had lost custody battles after being diagnosed with anger management issues. All of whom had been prescribed the same sleep medications. All of whom had wives who were lawyers or married to lawyers. It was a fucking assembly line. I convinced all 3 men to file complaints with the state medical board. The story made national news. Therapist accused of drugging patients in custody scheme. Dr. Martinez's practice was shut down within 48 hours. Meanwhile, Saddie was fighting back. She'd hired a crisis management firm and was giving interviews to anyone who'd listen, painting herself as the victim of a vindictive ex-husband's smear campaign. "Jake Morrison is a dangerous man," she told Channel 7 News. "He's been stalking me, threatening me, trying to destroy my career because I had the courage to leave an abusive marriage." Emma appeared on camera beside her, nodding supportively. "My father has serious anger issues. My mother was right to protect herself." That interview aired on a Thursday night. By Friday morning, Tommy had organized a response. 15 of my former employees, 3 neighbors, 2 coaches from Emma's high school sports teams, and the pastor from our old church all gave statements to the same news station. "Jake Morrison is one of the gentlest men I've ever known," said Mrs. Patterson, our next-door neighbor for 12 years. "I've never seen him raise his voice, let alone his hand." Jake coached my daughter's softball team for 3 years, said Bill Hendricks, a local business owner. He was patient with the kids, respectful to the parents, and never showed anything but kindness. The pastor was particularly effective. I counseled Jake and Saddie through several rough patches in their marriage. Jake was always willing to work on their problems. Saddie was the one who refused to participate. By the weekend, public opinion had shifted. Saddie's victim narrative was falling apart. That's when David made his mistake. He showed up at my house on Saturday morning alone, carrying a briefcase and wearing his most expensive suit. "Jake, we need to talk." "Nothing to talk about, David. Wedding's in 2 weeks, right? Hope you registered for good china because you're going to need something to eat off of in prison." "This has gone far enough. You're destroying innocent people." "Innocent?" I laughed. "You drugged me, stole my money, and tried to have me arrested for crimes I didn't commit. Which part of that was innocent?" David set his briefcase on my porch. "There's $500,000 in here, cash. Take it and disappear. Move to another state, start over, leave us alone." "You're trying to bribe me." "I'm trying to end this before it gets worse." "Worse for who?" "For Emma. She's caught in the middle of this, Jake. She doesn't deserve what you're doing to her mother." That stopped me cold. Emma. My daughter, who'd believed every lie Saddie had told her, who'd gone on television to call me abusive, who'd chosen her mother's side without even asking for mine. "What about what you did to me?" I asked. "You'll survive. You're tougher than you look." "And Saddie? Will she survive what's coming?" David's face went pale. "What's coming?" I smiled. "The wedding, David. I wouldn't miss it for the world." He left the briefcase on my porch and drove away fast enough to leave rubber on the street. I called Michelle that afternoon. "How's your computer skills?" "Better than average." "Why?" "I need to hack a wedding." "What kind of hack?" "The kind that ends with Saddie and David wishing they'd never been born." Michelle was quiet for a long moment. "Jake, are you sure about this? Once we cross this line, there's no going back." "They crossed the line 18 months ago when they decided to destroy my life. I'm just returning the favor." "What do you need?" "Guest list, seating chart, audio-visual setup, and a way to broadcast to every social media platform simultaneously." "That's ambitious." "Saddie likes big audiences. I'm going to give her the biggest audience of her life." The wedding was being held at the Riverside Hotel, the same place where they'd celebrated my destruction. The irony was too perfect to ignore. 200 guests, half the legal establishment of 3 counties, local politicians, business leaders, and media figures. Saddie had turned her wedding into a networking event, a celebration of her professional success. She had no idea she was planning her own funeral. The morning of Saddie's wedding dawned clear and cold. Perfect weather for a perfect revenge. I dressed carefully. My best suit, the one I'd worn to our wedding 20 years ago. Saddie had always said I looked handsome in navy blue. Today, I wanted to look my absolute best. Michelle met me at Murphy's bar at noon. She had a laptop bag and the kind of smile that meant trouble. "Everything's set," she said. "Guest list, seating chart, and I've got administrative access to their entire audio-visual system." "How?" "I used to work for the hotel's law firm, still have my login credentials." She opened her laptop and showed me a control panel. "I can override their entire presentation system from here." "And the social media?" "Facebook Live, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube. The moment you give me the signal, this goes out to everyone." I pulled out a manila envelope thick with documents. Insurance policy, copies of everything, bank records, text messages, the hotel video, medical records, bribery evidence. If this goes wrong, make sure these get to the FBI. "It won't go wrong." "Promise me, Michelle. If something happens to me, you finish this." She nodded. "I promise." The Riverside Hotel was decorated like a fairy tale. white roses, silk ribbons, and enough champagne to float a yacht. Saddie had spared no expense, which was ironic, since she was spending my money to do it. I walked through the front door at exactly 3:47 p.m., 13 minutes before the ceremony was scheduled to begin. The lobby was full of guests in expensive clothes, chattering about what a beautiful couple Saddie and David made. Judge Hartwell was near the reception desk, looking nervous. Dr. Martinez was by the bar, drinking heavily despite the early hour. David was nowhere to be seen, probably getting ready in the bridal suite. Saddie appeared at the top of the main staircase at exactly 4 p.m. She was beautiful. I had to admit that. The dress was perfect. Her hair was perfect. Her makeup was perfect. She looked like a woman who'd won everything she'd ever wanted. She saw me immediately. Our eyes met across the crowded lobby, and her perfect smile faltered for just a moment. I raised my hand and gave her a little wave. The ceremony was being held in the hotel's main ballroom, 200 guests, a string quartet, and enough flowers to stock a funeral home. I took a seat in the back row, right next to the audio-visual control booth, where Michelle was waiting with her laptop. Saddie walked down the aisle on Tommy's arm. Apparently, she'd asked my brother to give her away, since her own father had disowned her after the newspaper story broke. Tommy caught my eye and nodded slightly. He was playing his part perfectly. David looked like he might throw up. He kept glancing toward the back of the room, clearly hoping I wouldn't show up. When he saw me, his face went white. The officiant was some rent-a-reverend who'd probably never met either of them before today. He began with the standard wedding speech about love and commitment and eternal devotion. I let him get through the opening remarks. Let Saddie and David exchange their prepared vows. Let them think they were going to get away with it. Then, just as the officiant asked if anyone had any objection to the union, I stood up. I do. 200 heads turned toward me. The string quartet stopped playing. Saddie looked like she'd seen a ghost. "Jake," the officiant said nervously, "this is highly irregular. So is bigamy." I pulled out a document and held it up. "Saddie Elizabeth Morrison is still legally married to me. This ceremony is invalid." Murmurs rippled through the crowd. David grabbed Saddie's arm, whispering urgently in her ear. "That's impossible," Saddie called out. "I filed for divorce months ago." "You filed for separation. Not the same thing." I started walking toward the altar. "But that's not why I'm here." I nodded to Michelle. She hit a key on her laptop, and suddenly my voice was coming through the hotel's sound system, amplified and crystal clear. "I'm here because 6 weeks ago, my wife of 18 years abandoned me in a snowstorm after drugging me, stealing our life savings, and fabricating evidence of domestic abuse." The crowd was dead silent now. Saddie was shaking her head, trying to signal the officiant to continue, but he was frozen. "I'm here because the man she's trying to marry helped her commit bank fraud, judicial bribery, and conspiracy to commit perjury." Judge Hartwell stood up. "This is outrageous. Security should remove this man immediately. Sit down, Your Honor. We're just getting started." Michelle hit another key. The hotel's projection screens came to life, showing the security camera footage from 3 weeks ago. Saddie, David, Judge Hartwell, and Dr. Martinez toasting their success. The audio was devastating. "To the icebreaker protocol, the most elegant destruction of a marriage I've ever witnessed." Jake never saw it coming. The sleep medication kept him just confused enough to be believable. Even if he finds the burner phone, he can't prove the recordings were edited. The ballroom erupted. Guests were on their feet, shouting questions, pulling out phones to record. Several people were already heading for the exits. But I wasn't done. "Saddie, honey," I called out over the noise. "Remember our wedding vows? For better or worse, in sickness and in health, till death do us part?" She was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks. "Jake, please. You forgot one part, the part about forsaking all others." I pulled out the burner phone. Should I read your text messages out loud? The ones where you and David planned to have me arrested on fake tax charges? David broke. He grabbed Saddie's hand and started pulling her toward the side exit. We're leaving. This is harassment. Actually, you're not. Tommy and Mike Santos stepped into the aisle, blocking their path. Behind them were 6 more guys from Tommy's crew, all of them looking like they'd enjoy a good fight. You see, David, I've spent the last month learning everything about you. Your gambling debts, your cocaine habit, the client money you've been stealing to pay for both. I nodded to Michelle again. More documents appeared on the screens. Bank records, credit card statements, photos of David at underground poker games, and high-end drug deals. The FBI is very interested in your finances, David. Amazing how much evidence you can gather when you know where to look. David's legs gave out. He collapsed into a chair, his face gray. And Saddie, sweetheart, remember Dr. Martinez, your old colleague who helped you drug me? Dr. Martinez was already moving toward the exit, but Tommy's guys were there too. He's been doing this to other people, other husbands, other families. The state medical board revoked his license yesterday. The FBI raided his office this morning. Saddie was sobbing openly now. Jake, I'm sorry. I made mistakes, but we can work this out. Work it out? I laughed. Like you worked out stealing my retirement fund? Like you worked out having me committed to a mental institution? More gasps from the crowd. I had their complete attention now. Oh, you didn't know about that part. Saddie and David had a backup plan. If the abuse allegations didn't stick, they were going to have me declared mentally incompetent. Dr. Martinez had already prepared the paperwork. I pulled out the final document, a commitment order with my name on it, pre-signed by Judge Hartwell, dated for next week. One signature from my loving wife, and I would have disappeared into the state mental health system. Permanently. The silence was absolute now. Even the hotel staff had stopped moving. Emma stood up from the front row, my daughter, beautiful in her bridesmaid dress, staring at her mother with horror. Mom? Is this true? Saddie couldn't speak. She was hyperventilating, clutching David's arm like a lifeline. Emma, I said gently, your mother spent 18 months planning to destroy me. She drugged me, recorded me, stole from me, and lied to everyone who cared about us, including you. But the abuse never happened. The recordings were edited. The photos were staged. The medical reports were fabricated. I looked directly at Saddie. Tell her, Saddie. Tell our daughter what you really did. Saddie collapsed completely, falling to her knees in her wedding dress. I'm sorry, she whispered. I'm so sorry. But I wasn't finished. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced to the crowd, you've just witnessed the end of the icebreaker protocol. But don't worry, the FBI will be here shortly to arrest everyone involved. As if on cue, federal agents began filing into the ballroom. Michelle had timed it perfectly. Jake Morrison? The lead agent approached me. Agent Williams, FBI, we'd like to thank you for your cooperation in this investigation. The next hour was chaos. Arrests, interrogations, and a media circus as news crews arrived to cover the story. Saddie, David, Judge Hartwell, and Dr. Martinez were all taken into custody. I found Emma in the hotel lobby, still in her bridesmaid dress, crying. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't know. It's okay, sweetheart. She lied to all of us. Can you forgive me? I hugged my daughter for the first time in months. There's nothing to forgive. You believed your mother. That's what daughters are supposed to do. Michelle appeared beside us, closing her laptop. It's done. The video's been viewed 2 million times already. This is going to be national news by tonight. What happens now? Emma asked. Now? Now your mother and her friends go to prison. The money gets returned to the people they stole from, and we try to rebuild what they destroyed. I looked back toward the ballroom, where crime scene technicians were collecting evidence and reporters were interviewing shocked wedding guests. Saddie had wanted to break me like ice. Instead, she'd learned that some things, when you try to break them, just get harder. 6 weeks after my wife abandoned me in a snowstorm, I'd walked into her wedding carrying the one thing she never expected me to bring: the truth.